Hustle harder, hustle smarter. This video is based on key insights from the book Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter by Curtis, 50 Cent Jackson. Introduction. Curtis, 50 Cent Jackson begins by explaining why, despite numerous offers and even co-authoring a book, he hesitated to write a self-help guide. He felt uncomfortable presenting himself as an expert, acknowledging his own failures alongside his successes. Jackson points out that achieving fame and fortune doesn't automatically fix everything in life, and he's experienced setbacks in money, relationships, and opportunities just like anyone else. This honesty is key to his eventual decision to write, recognizing that his unique journey, rising from hardship to success and back again, offers valuable lessons. Jackson details his challenging upbringing, born to a teenage mother who turned to drug dealing to provide for him. Her tragic death and subsequent life with his grandparents, followed by his own involvement in the drug trade, created a difficult foundation. He emphasizes that it's easy to be knocked down by circumstances like these, but his determination to push forward, even after being shot 9 times, is a testament to resilience. This illustrates a core message. Setbacks don't define you, your response to them does. He highlights that even after achieving initial success with his music, he faced new challenges like the loss of his mentor and changes in the music industry. The author describes a period where, despite outward success, things felt off course. He realized the need to reassess, shed distractions, and refocus his energy. This is a crucial lesson in embracing change. Jackson explains that just like a snake shedding its skin, sometimes you need to let go of things holding you back to grow. He found renewed purpose in building a relationship with his son, demonstrating that personal growth is often intertwined with improving relationships. This led to a second wave of success in television, culminating in a significant deal with Stars, proving that it's possible to reinvent yourself and reach new heights. Jackson stresses that success isn't a destination, but a continuous process. He believes that struggles and obstacles are inevitable, regardless of how much you've already achieved. The ability to sustain success, he argues, is more important than simply attaining it. He identifies 2 key characteristics that have driven his ability to stay on top: a relentless hustler's heart and fearlessness. He clarifies that fearless doesn't mean lacking fear, but rather confronting it head-on instead of being paralyzed by it. He uses the example of running towards danger, not away from it, to illustrate this point. Jackson acknowledges the duality within himself, the persona of 50 Cent and the person of Curtis Jackson. He explains that 50 Cent was a way to cope with a chaotic upbringing, while Curtis Jackson represents the grounded individual who has sustained his success. He emphasizes that both sides are essential. He's been navigating the corporate world for longer than he was involved in street life, and he's found that the principles for success are surprisingly similar in both environments. Be fearless, cultivate a hustler's mindset, build a strong team, know your worth, and constantly evolve. The author stresses the importance of recognizing your value and not rushing into deals. He explains that confidence in his abilities has allowed him to negotiate favorable terms and focus on long-term potential. He also highlights the need to adapt and evolve, stating that unwillingness to change can lead to failure. Jackson emphasizes the power of shaping perception, presenting yourself as the person you aspire to be, even when facing challenges. He believes in healthy competition, seeing it as a catalyst for growth, and underscores the importance of learning from failures, viewing them as opportunities for improvement. Finally, he cautions against entitlement, emphasizing that success requires taking responsibility for your own journey. Jackson concludes by encouraging readers to embrace learning and apply the principles he shares to their own lives. Chapter 1: Finding Fearlessness. Curtis Jackson believes a life without any fear isn't really living. He starts the chapter with a quote about fear being what makes taking chances exciting, and then shares a story about a friend, Corentin, who took risky photos in dangerous places. Others saw it as foolish, but Jackson saw it as freedom. He even tried it himself, climbing a water tower in Times Square, not because he wasn't scared, but because he wanted to feel alive and ambitious. He learned that sometimes, pushing past your comfort zone can be incredibly empowering. He posted a picture of this daring act online, declaring he lived on the edge and wasn't afraid, but even received a warning from his insurance company for being reckless. This showed him that people don't always understand taking risks, but he wasn't going to let that stop him. Jackson emphasizes that he wasn't born fearless. He admits to being scared as a child and facing anxieties throughout his life, like being afraid of getting shot or failing as a rapper. The difference, he explains, is that he refuses to let fear control him. He sees comfort as the enemy of progress, something that stops people from reaching their full potential. He points out that most people are actually comfortable with their fears, avoiding things they're afraid of instead of facing them. He doesn't think fear is bad, even suggesting a little paranoia can be helpful, but it shouldn't paralyze you. He uses a quote from Marcus Aurelius to highlight that the biggest regret isn't facing death, but never truly living. A turning point for Jackson was the death of his mother. While incredibly painful, it gave him a strange gift, a sense of fearlessness. He explains that experiencing the worst loss possible made other fears seem smaller. He then shares his experience with boxing as a young boy, where he was often outmatched in size and skill. His coach, Allah Understanding, didn't shield him from getting hit, but instead taught him to endure the pain and fight back. Jackson learned that getting hit wasn't the end of the world, and that he could always do something to protect himself. This lesson extended beyond the ring, teaching him to face challenges head-on instead of avoiding them. Jackson connects this to the idea of not being afraid to get hit in life, to take risks, and accept that setbacks are inevitable. He uses the analogy of a horse race, saying he'd rather bet on himself because he knows he'll give it his all. He then reveals a personal fear: family. Despite his success, he struggles with trust and vulnerability when it comes to family relationships, stemming from his difficult childhood and the loss of his mother. He admits to a strained relationship with his older son, Marquise, and a desire to build a stronger connection with his younger son, Sire. He acknowledges this is an area where he needs to grow. Jackson concludes by offering advice on how to build confidence. He stresses the importance of hard work and preparation. If you've truly mastered your craft, you shouldn't be afraid to speak up and share your knowledge. He warns against both being too timid and too eager to show off, using examples of people he's encountered in the music industry. He encourages readers to raise their hand, to take opportunities, and to not let fear hold them back from achieving their goals. He believes that facing your fears is the key to unlocking your full potential and living a truly free life. Chapter 2: Heart of a Hustler. Curtis Jackson shares a powerful message about success, built on a foundation of hard work and a willingness to adapt. He begins by highlighting a simple truth: things come to those who wait, but only the things left behind by those who hustle. This isn't just about putting in hours, but about actively pursuing opportunities and not being afraid to take action. Jackson emphasizes that a strong work ethic is the one thing all successful people have in common, and that talent or luck alone aren't enough to sustain long-term achievement. He illustrates this with the story of Gracchus Foster, who rose from a Brazilian favela to become the CEO of Petrobras through sheer determination and relentless effort. Jackson stresses that hustling isn't just about working hard, it's about working smart. He acknowledges strategies like building a strong team and understanding your value, but insists these are only effective if paired with a fundamental commitment to hard work. He then dives into the importance of a clean lifestyle, arguing that prioritizing health through avoiding drugs and alcohol, eating well, and exercising provides the energy and focus needed to consistently hustle. He shares his own disciplined routine, even while maintaining a busy social life, and explains how this allows him to outperform others. He doesn't preach abstinence, but demonstrates how strategic choices can give a competitive edge. He uses the example of appearing to drink champagne while actually sipping ginger ale, highlighting the power of perception and control. The author then discusses the necessity of focus. He shares the inspiring story of Isaac Wright Jr., a man wrongly convicted who taught himself law in prison and ultimately overturned his conviction. Wright's unwavering dedication to a single goal, his freedom, is presented as a prime example of how focus can overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Jackson contrasts this with the distractions that derail many people, urging readers to identify their own what, their driving purpose, and eliminate anything that hinders progress. He suggests vision boards as a tool to clarify goals and maintain motivation. Jackson emphasizes that success isn't a destination, but a continuous journey. He uses the analogy of running through an endless tunnel, acknowledging that there will always be new challenges. He encourages readers to embrace this reality and avoid complacency. He shares his own journey, from selling drugs to becoming a successful entrepreneur, demonstrating how his goals evolved over time. He stresses the importance of trusting your instincts, honed through experience, but also balancing intuition with strategic planning. He explains that while a hustler is aggressive, they aren't reckless and always assess risks before committing. Finally, Jackson shares his perspective on risk and gambling, contrasting his calculated approach to business with the more impulsive behavior he observed in figures like Floyd Mayweather. He concludes that the most reliable bet is always on oneself, and that consistent hard work, combined with a clear vision and unwavering focus, is the key to achieving lasting success. He encourages readers to define their own what and relentlessly pursue it, understanding that the journey itself is the reward. Chapter 3: Constructing Your Crew. Curtis 50 Cent. Jackson shares a lot about building a team and succeeding, but at its heart, the chapter is about learning to let go and embrace what comes next. Jackson stresses that holding onto the past, whether it's old friends or old ways of doing things, can actually hold you back. He learned this the hard way, initially trying to bring his entire neighborhood with him when he found success. He bought Mike Tyson's mansion, specifically, so his friends could share in his good fortune, but eventually realized that maintaining that lifestyle was expensive and distracting. It was a nice gesture, but ultimately unsustainable. Jackson explains that while loyalty is important, it's crucial to recognize when holding onto the past prevents future growth. The author's story about steering in the drug trade illustrates a key point about assessing people. He didn't just hire anyone for the job. He looked for character, understanding that someone with nothing to lose was a liability. This lesson translates directly to the business world, as demonstrated by the cautionary tale of the CFO who stole from a Fortune 500 company. Jackson emphasizes that a bad hire, especially in a critical position, can be catastrophic, far more damaging than a missed business opportunity. This highlights the importance of taking risks on people, but doing so thoughtfully, prioritizing character and trustworthiness. Jackson's advice extends beyond business to personal relationships, pointing out the high divorce rates among billionaires. He believes this is often due to marrying without truly knowing someone's motives. This reinforces the idea that careful evaluation of character is essential in all aspects of life, not just professional ones. He admits to having trust issues, even describing his condition as pistonthrophobia, a fear of trusting people. However, he acknowledges that overcoming this fear is necessary for continued success. He'd rather be robbed than betrayed, because betrayal cuts deeper and is harder to recover from. The author's experience with his crew, particularly the situation with Bang M. Smurf, demonstrates the need for discipline. Jackson had a zero-tolerance policy for infighting, understanding that internal conflict could derail everything he was building. He was willing to make tough decisions, even sending someone home mid-tour, to maintain focus and protect the team's momentum. This illustrates the importance of setting clear expectations and enforcing them consistently. He also shares how he helped motivate Deontay Wilder and Floyd Mayweather before big fights, showing that effective leadership involves understanding individual needs and tailoring your approach accordingly. Ultimately, Jackson's message is about recognizing when it's time to move on and embrace new opportunities. He learned from his mentor, Chris Lighty's tragic death that trusting people is a risk worth taking, but it requires careful judgment and a willingness to let go of the past. He encourages readers to find a balance between staying true to their roots and expanding their horizons, surrounding themselves with both loyal friends and capable professionals. Jackson's journey shows that success isn't just about making money. It's about building a strong team, making smart choices, and having the courage to adapt and evolve. Chapter 4: Knowing Your Value. Curtis Jackson shares a lot of wisdom about how to succeed, not just in music, but in life. He emphasizes that knowing your worth is important, but it's even more important to be smart about how you use that knowledge. He learned early on that people, even friends and family, will often try to get you for less than you deserve. But instead of always fighting for every penny right away, Jackson advises being patient and looking at the bigger picture. He explains that sometimes taking a little less upfront can lead to much bigger rewards down the road. Jackson talks about how his attitude shifted over time. Early in his career, he was all about demanding what he was owed, fueled by the energy of hip-hop artists who weren't afraid to ask for what they deserved. But he realized that sometimes, that aggressive approach could actually stop opportunities from happening. He learned to be more strategic, evaluating not just the immediate money, but all the potential benefits a situation could offer. He highlights his ability to see value where others don't, which helped him build a career beyond just being a rapper. A key lesson Jackson shares is the importance of patience. He recounts how he turned down several deals early in his career, even though it meant waiting longer for a breakthrough. He specifically details his decision to sign with Eminem's Shady Records and Interscope, despite other offers that seemed good at the time. He explains that he wasn't just looking for a quick paycheck. He wanted a partnership that would give him access to a wider audience and the expertise of someone like Dr. Dre. He waited for the deal that felt right, even when others thought he was making a mistake. Jackson's journey wasn't easy. He faced setbacks, like being dropped from Columbia Records after being shot. But instead of giving up, he used those experiences to refine his approach. He realized that being perceived as damaged goods meant he had to be even more careful about choosing his next move. He didn't let his past cloud his vision for the future. He understood that the best deal wasn't always the most obvious one. He stresses that focusing on long-term potential is crucial. He illustrates this with his investment in Vitamin Water. While many people thought he was crazy for investing in a water company instead of a more traditional endorsement deal, Jackson saw the potential for growth and brand recognition. He didn't just want a quick check, he wanted a piece of the company. This foresight ultimately led to a massive payout when Coca-Cola bought Glaso, the parent company of Vitamin Water. Jackson warns against getting fixated on a specific number. He shares a story about a former associate, Shaw Money XL, who insisted on a $50,000 upfront payment instead of accepting a percentage of the album royalties. Shaw's stubbornness cost him a potential $1.3 million. Jackson emphasizes that negotiations are about give and take, and being willing to compromise can lead to much greater rewards. He encourages readers to focus on the overall value of a deal, not just the immediate financial gain. He also emphasizes the importance of taking action and not waiting for permission. He uses the phrase, "just do shit," to encourage people to pursue their ideas and create their own opportunities. He points out that the internet has made it easier than ever to bypass traditional gatekeepers and connect directly with an audience. He shares his own experience of creating his own internship at Columbia Records, where he learned the ins and outs of the music industry by simply showing up and asking questions. Jackson concludes by stressing the importance of getting everything in writing. He warns against relying on handshakes or verbal promises, especially when large sums of money are involved. He explains that people's priorities can change, and a written contract is the only way to protect your interests. He learned through experience that promises aren't worth much without a solid agreement to back them up. Ultimately, Jackson's advice is about being strategic, patient, and proactive in pursuing your goals, and always protecting your value. Chapter 5: Evolve or Die. Curtis Jackson believes life is all about change, and resisting it is a recipe for getting left behind. He starts the chapter with a quote about evolution, setting the stage for his core message: don't get stuck. He illustrates this with the story of David Falk, a law student who relentlessly pursued a job at a sports agency. Falk didn't just settle for the expected path of representing tennis players. He noticed basketball was gaining popularity and pushed for that change, ultimately landing Michael Jordan and revolutionizing sneaker deals. Jackson emphasizes that Falk's success wasn't about being the best at tennis representation, but about recognizing a shift and creating a new model. This is a key lesson. Successful people don't just adapt, they create new ways of doing things. Jackson then shares a personal experience about a song, Crack a Bottle, that was a huge hit internationally but flopped in the US. Instead of making excuses, he analyzed the situation and realized hip-hop culture had moved on and no longer saw him as the underdog. This was a tough realization, but Jackson understood he needed to diversify to stay relevant. He explains that hip-hop often celebrates those who have overcome hardship, and once someone achieves success, the culture often looks for the next damaged artist. He didn't take this personally. He saw it as a signal to evolve. He uses the examples of past rap stars like NWA, Wu-Tang Clan, and Tupac, all of whom had a moment, but eventually were replaced by the next damaged artist. Jackson's takeaway is that artists must recognize when their time is changing and find new avenues for growth, like Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, who transitioned into acting and business. The author stresses the importance of knowing when to shift. He highlights that simply wanting to change isn't enough. You need to be observant and analyze what's happening around you. He uses his own experience with Crack a Bottle to demonstrate this. He didn't blame the lack of promotion or the absence of featured artists. He recognized a cultural shift. Jackson explains that hip-hop has a pattern of embracing the underdog, and once someone achieves mainstream success, they're often seen differently. He then offers a broader point: people stop seeing you as human once you make it. This is a crucial insight. Success can create distance between you and your audience. Jackson emphasizes that evolving isn't just about personal growth. It's about adapting to cultural changes. He discusses the success of his show, Power, and how he intentionally built it to reflect the evolving interests of his audience. Initially, his audience was younger and interested in club life, so he created a show that mirrored that energy. As his audience matured, he shifted the themes to focus on adult relationships and complex family dynamics. He also understood the need to be graphic and edgy to match the changing standards of television. He points out that Power succeeded where other shows failed because he understood his audience and gave them what they wanted, even if it meant taking risks. Jackson contrasts his own willingness to evolve with the experiences of Lloyd Banks and Tony Yeo, former members of G-Unit. He explains that both artists struggled to adapt and remained stuck in their old ways. Banks, he says, was comfortable being a talented lyricist, but lacked the drive to become a full-fledged star. Yeo, while energetic, couldn't let go of his street mentality and struggled to navigate the corporate world. Jackson believes he tried to help them, but ultimately they weren't willing to change. He uses this as a cautionary tale. Refusing to evolve leads to stagnation and missed opportunities. He explains that people often get comfortable and believe their past success will guarantee future success, but the world doesn't work that way. Jackson uses the story of the Babylonian king Belshazzar to illustrate that warning signs are often subtle. He argues that the writing isn't on the wall in a literal sense. You have to be perceptive and read the energy around you. He shares how he recognized the changing dynamics at Interscope Records, even when executives were still praising his work. He noticed the slower response times, the less frequent meetings, and the overall shift in energy. Instead of waiting to be dropped, he proactively sought a new path. He stresses that gathering information is more valuable than a paycheck, and that being open to new perspectives is essential for growth. Finally, Jackson emphasizes the importance of surrounding yourself with people who challenge you and expand your horizons. He describes his friendships with Robert Greene and Deepak Chopra, individuals who come from very different backgrounds and offer unique perspectives. He explains that these relationships have broadened his understanding of the world and helped him grow both personally and professionally. He encourages readers to seek out diverse connections and be open to learning from others, even those who seem different. He concludes that a willingness to learn and evolve is the key to staying young and relevant, no matter your age. Chapter 6: Power of Perception. Curtis Jackson reflects on how the world sees you based on how you see yourself. A lesson he learned firsthand as he transitioned from a street hustler to a successful music mogul. He noticed that when he was struggling, people connected with his music because it felt real. But once he achieved fame and fortune, he became more of a character than a person, someone people thought couldn't be hurt or disappointed. Jackson realized he couldn't change this perception, but he could use it to his advantage. He learned to hustle smarter, turning a potential negative into a strength. Jackson explains how the media often portrays him differently depending on his circumstances. When things are going well, he's the music mogul 50 Cent. But when he faces challenges, he's simply the rapper 50 Cent. He saw this as an opportunity. Being labeled a rapper when controversial things happened gave him more freedom than someone in a more respected position might have. People were more willing to dismiss his actions as simply 50 being 50, rather than taking them seriously. This freedom allowed him to be authentic, running his own social media and sharing his true self with his millions of followers. He emphasizes that being genuine is a powerful tool. This strategy ultimately helped Jackson secure a major deal with stars for his television show, Power. The success of Power wasn't attributed to the rapper 50 Cent, but to Curtis Jackson, the mogul. He understood that controlling how people perceive you isn't about being fake, but about understanding and using energy to your benefit. He uses the analogy of water, explaining that just as water's energy can be harnessed for power, you can harness the energy of how others see you. Jackson shares early examples of shaping perceptions, starting with his childhood hustle. He needed to balance school with selling drugs, but his grandmother wouldn't let him walk home alone. He cleverly told her he was being teased for being bigger than other kids, convincing her to let him walk independently. He then used the after-school program as a cover to extend his hustling hours, even forging a signature on a permission slip. He even managed to get out of church by appealing to his grandfather's desire for peace and quiet. These early experiences taught him the importance of presenting a specific image to achieve his goals. He learned to understand what people wanted to believe and then use that to his advantage. He further illustrates this point with a story about his grandfather, who always gave his grandmother his paycheck. Jackson initially didn't understand this, but later realized it was a way to avoid conflict and maintain peace at home. By being completely transparent with his finances, his grandfather eliminated any potential for suspicion or arguments. Jackson highlights that this wasn't about weakness, but about controlling the energy in the relationship. Jackson stresses the importance of presenting the best version of yourself, even if it means creating a persona. He acknowledges that his 50 Cent persona is partly a creation, built on his experiences, but also designed to protect and elevate Curtis Jackson. He encourages readers not to try to be him, but to understand the power of presenting themselves authentically. He warns against trying to copy others, as that weakens your own unique energy. He then shares how he strategically used bootlegging to build buzz for his early mixtapes. Instead of fighting it, he embraced it, making his music readily available through unofficial channels. This created a sense of exclusivity and demand, ultimately attracting the attention of record labels. He also discusses how acting like he didn't need a record deal actually made labels more interested in signing him. This act like you don't need it strategy, he explains, is about projecting confidence and making others believe they're gaining something by working with you. Jackson emphasizes the importance of understanding how others perceive you and using that knowledge to your advantage. He recounts a story about meeting Bruce Willis and learning the power of speaking softly to command attention. He also describes how simply ironing his clothes can signal respect and effort. He shares an anecdote about a TV executive who noticed a change in how people treated him simply by wearing a suit. These examples demonstrate that even small changes in presentation can have a significant impact. He recounts his experience with Bernie Madoff, noting how Madoff's ability to project an air of success and exclusivity allowed him to attract investors. Jackson points out that Madoff didn't need to aggressively pursue clients. They came to him because he appeared to be already successful. Jackson stresses that this principle applies to everyone, regardless of their background. Jackson concludes by emphasizing the importance of being honest with yourself and others. He shares stories about Wu Kid and Jimmy Iovine, highlighting how he valued their authenticity, even if it meant accepting their flaws. He learned that empowering people to be themselves, rather than trying to force them into a role, leads to more sustainable and successful relationships. Ultimately, Jackson believes that the key to success is embracing your true self and controlling the narrative surrounding your life. Chapter 7, If We Can't Be Friends. Curtis Jackson believes disagreement is normal, a lesson he learned the hard way with Oprah Winfrey. For years, he disliked her because of her comments about hip-hop, feeling she unfairly criticized the music he created. However, his real frustration stemmed from being excluded from her show, a major platform for artists. He wanted to be there, recognizing its power to boost his career. Instead of quietly accepting this, Jackson took a risk, publicly stating his belief that Oprah's audience wouldn't accept him. This bold move, though potentially damaging, was a calculated strategy to get her attention. He understood that even negative attention could be beneficial. Jackson's story highlights a key piece of advice: don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. He didn't simply accept being overlooked. He actively sought to change the situation, even if it meant appearing confrontational. This willingness to disrupt the norm eventually led to an invitation onto Oprah's show, proving his strategy worked. He learned that sometimes you have to create your own opportunities, even if it means ruffling feathers. He explains that he wasn't necessarily trying to make an enemy, but he was prepared to be one if it meant being acknowledged. This demonstrates a pragmatic approach to navigating the entertainment industry. The chapter then shifts to Jackson's experience at a fundraiser, where he encountered Gayle King, Oprah's best friend. This encounter illustrates the importance of understanding your audience and adapting your approach. Jackson realized his initial comments had painted him in a negative light, but he cleverly reframed his perspective, explaining his actions as a strategic attempt to gain Oprah's attention. This ability to articulate his intentions and demonstrate self-awareness resonated with King, leading to a meeting with Oprah herself. Jackson's advice here is to be able to explain your actions and show that there's a method to your madness. The conversation with Oprah reveals Jackson's core philosophy: competition brings out the best. He recognized that Oprah's criticism stemmed from differing cultural perspectives, but instead of taking offense, he used it as fuel. He understood that even disagreement could be a catalyst for growth and understanding. He shares the ancient Greek concept of agon, which views conflict as a natural and beneficial force. Jackson applies this to hip-hop, emphasizing the competitive spirit that drives innovation and keeps the culture fresh. He believes that striving to be the best, even if it means facing rivals, is essential for success. Jackson further illustrates this point with the rivalry between Enzo Ferrari and Ferruccio Lamborghini. While both were passionate about cars, their different approaches, racing versus practicality, pushed each other to innovate and create iconic brands. This example demonstrates that competition isn't about destruction, it's about mutual improvement. Jackson emphasizes that a strong opponent forces you to elevate your game. He even admits to intentionally seeking out competition, viewing it as a necessary ingredient for success. He doesn't shy away from being labeled a bully, but clarifies that his actions are driven by strategy, not emotion. He details his strategy of preferring friendship, but accepting enmity if necessary, because even negative attention keeps you relevant. This is a calculated risk, understanding that people talk about things they love or hate. Jackson's story about how to rob exemplifies this. The controversial song, filled with disses towards other artists, generated massive buzz and propelled his career forward. He wasn't necessarily trying to start beefs, but he recognized the power of controversy to capture attention. This demonstrates a willingness to take risks and challenge conventions. Jackson stresses the importance of appreciating the greatness of others. He advises aspiring artists to identify their competition and measure themselves against the best in their field. He uses the example of cataloging inspiring musical moments, comparing his own work to songs like Black Rob's, Whoa, and Boogie Down Productions, The Bridge is Over. This constant self-assessment, though challenging, forces you to push your creative boundaries. He learned this during his time at Bearsville Studios, a hip-hop boot camp, where he relentlessly honed his skills alongside established artists. The Bearsville experience underscores the value of hard work and dedication. Jackson immersed himself in the creative process, outworking everyone around him and recording a wealth of material. He emphasizes that success isn't about talent alone. It's about relentless effort and a willingness to compete. He also learned the importance of controlling your narrative. When Columbia Records didn't fully support his debut album, Jackson created his own buzz by instigating a public rivalry with Kanye West. This demonstrates a proactive approach to marketing and a refusal to rely on others to champion his work. Jackson's competition with Kanye West, though ultimately a victory for West in terms of album sales, proved to be a valuable learning experience. He realized that competing against someone on a similar level could elevate both artists. He also learned the importance of choosing your battles wisely. He later shifted his focus to competing with the gold standard in television, HBO's Game of Thrones, recognizing that it was a more meaningful benchmark for his show, Power. This demonstrates a strategic mindset and a willingness to challenge the best in the industry. Finally, Jackson emphasizes the importance of keeping a book on your competition, a practice inspired by tennis player René Lacoste. This involves meticulously studying your rival's strengths and weaknesses, using that knowledge to gain a competitive advantage. He applies this principle to various aspects of his career, from music to television, constantly analyzing the moves of his competitors. Jackson's overall message is clear: embrace competition, take risks, and always be prepared to seize opportunities. He believes that a relentless pursuit of excellence, combined with a strategic mindset, is the key to achieving lasting success. Chapter 8: Learning from your LS. Curtis 50 Cent. Jackson begins by reflecting on the story of Soichiro Honda, the founder of Honda Motor Co., as a powerful example of how to handle setbacks. Jackson points out that Honda's early life wasn't marked by academic success, but by a relentless curiosity and willingness to tinker. This illustrates a key piece of advice: don't let a lack of traditional qualifications stop you from pursuing your passions. Honda's initial failure with his piston designs wasn't the end, but a crucial learning experience. He didn't give up. Instead, he recognized his knowledge gaps and actively sought education, demonstrating the importance of being open to change and adapting your approach. Jackson emphasizes that success isn't a straight line, but a process built on repeated failures and honest self-assessment. Jackson then connects Honda's story to his own life, acknowledging that taking risks and pursuing opportunities requires both passion and hard work. He highlights that many people have ideas, but few possess the drive to actually make them happen. He stresses that failure is inevitable, but the response to that failure is what truly matters. He warns against letting setbacks crush your motivation or lead to self-destructive behaviors. Instead, he advocates for viewing failures as valuable lessons, a tool to improve and refine your approach. He uses vivid imagery, comparing failure to scary figures like Freddy Krueger, to show how people often avoid it when they should be embracing it. The author shares his observations about human nature, noting that people often avoid admitting when they're wrong. He uses a relatable example of getting lost while driving, illustrating how pride can prevent someone from seeking help and correcting a mistake. Jackson argues that surrounding yourself with yes men is detrimental to growth, as constructive criticism is essential for identifying weaknesses. He uses the example of Floyd Mayweather and his employee, Bobby, to demonstrate how a toxic dynamic can stifle progress and prevent honest feedback. Jackson explains that a leader should create an environment where people feel safe to speak up, even if it means delivering difficult truths. Jackson then shifts to the world of boxing, a field he knows well, to further illustrate the importance of self-awareness and avoiding exploitation. He explains that boxers, while incredibly focused in the ring, often lack the business acumen to navigate the complex world of promotions and contracts. This vulnerability makes them susceptible to being taken advantage of by managers and promoters. He shares an anecdote about Floyd Mayweather needing confirmation of details from a business meeting, highlighting that even successful individuals can benefit from having trusted advisors, but also need to develop their own understanding. Jackson warns that sometimes those advisors have hidden agendas, and it's crucial to be aware of potential conflicts of interest. Jackson concludes by emphasizing the need for self-reliance and recognizing when you're being manipulated. He uses the example of Don King and Bob Arum, notorious boxing promoters, to illustrate how some individuals thrive by exploiting the vulnerabilities of others. He stresses the importance of understanding your own strengths and weaknesses and being willing to admit when you've made a mistake. Ultimately, Jackson encourages readers to learn from their losses, viewing them not as defeats, but as valuable instructions for future success. He points to scientific research supporting his claim that early failures can actually lead to greater long-term achievement. Chapter 9: The Entitlement Trap. Curtis Jackson reflects on reaching middle age with a surprising sense of excitement, a feeling he never anticipated as a young man facing difficult circumstances. He realizes that clinging to the past or expecting life to remain static is a recipe for disappointment. Jackson's core message centers on the importance of letting go of people who hinder your progress and embracing the responsibility for your own success. He argues that expecting others to carry you or feeling entitled to assistance is a trap that leads to resentment and stagnation. He illustrates this with stories from his life, starting with his complicated relationship with his son's mother, Shaniqua, whom he supported financially despite her lack of ambition. Jackson learned the hard way that enabling someone without seeing effort in return only fosters dependency and ultimately damages the relationship. Jackson uses a powerful analogy of lifeguarding to explain the need for boundaries. Just as a lifeguard must maintain distance from a struggling swimmer to avoid being pulled under, individuals must protect themselves from those who consistently drag them down. He isn't advocating for abandoning people in need, but rather for recognizing when helping someone is detrimental to your own well-being. He emphasizes that offering opportunities is valuable, but continuously supporting someone who doesn't seize them is a waste of energy. This idea extends to his experiences in the music industry, where he observed many talented individuals squander their potential due to a sense of entitlement. He points out that success isn't guaranteed, and some people simply aren't built to overcome challenges, regardless of the support they receive. The author shares a particularly painful example with his son, Marquise, whose resentment towards him grew, fueled by a sense of entitlement, and ultimately leading to a shocking display of disloyalty by associating with the son of a man who attempted to harm Jackson. This experience solidified Jackson's belief that you can't force someone to want success or take responsibility for their own life. He stresses that a crucial step towards personal growth is accepting that the world owes you nothing. This isn't a cynical viewpoint, he argues, but a liberating one. When you release the expectation of handouts or assistance, you free yourself to focus entirely on self-improvement. Jackson recalls his early success and how he initially wanted to share his newfound wealth with Shaniqua, hoping to help her find her own purpose. However, her lack of drive and her belief that she didn't need to work frustrated him. This led to a breakdown in their relationship and a realization that he couldn't force her to want something she didn't. He describes a turning point when Shaniqua bluntly stated she didn't want to work if she didn't have to, a statement that deeply offended Jackson's strong work ethic. He acknowledges that he might have inadvertently contributed to her mindset by providing financial support without requiring effort in return. This illustrates his point about the dangers of enabling others and the importance of fostering self-reliance. Jackson further illustrates this point with the story of his cousin, 25, who consistently sought his help to advance his rap career, but lacked the drive to do so independently. Jackson realized that 25 was more interested in being associated with his success than in building his own. He learned to distance himself from those who only sought to make withdrawals from his life, rather than making deposits. Jackson defines deposits as contributions to a relationship, whether through support, loyalty, or positive energy. He emphasizes the importance of surrounding yourself with people who uplift and inspire you, rather than those who drain your energy and hold you back. He connects this idea to a broader societal issue, observing a growing sense of entitlement, particularly among younger generations. Jackson believes this stems from a lack of understanding of the value of hard work and a belief that success should be handed to them. He contrasts this with the work ethic he observed in other countries, where people are more willing to hustle and take responsibility for their own lives. He advocates for embracing responsibility as a path to freedom and fulfillment. Jackson concludes by urging readers to identify the people in their lives who are consistently taking without giving and to distance themselves from those individuals. He emphasizes that true success comes from taking ownership of your life and relentlessly pursuing your goals, without relying on the expectations of others. And that brings us to the end of our summary of this book. I hope you found it insightful and valuable. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe for more. Your support helps us bring you more great content. Thanks for watching.